It's like 10 years since you guys released a seminal record, and the whole idea
Yeah.
behind these streams is just like having a really nice kind of forum where we can dive deep into not just that record, but like your whole journey since then, before then, and you as an individual and you as a band member. Can I just start by asking, like, when you look back at, like, oh, it's 10 years since then, is there a part of you that goes, like, whoa? Or is there a part of you that really kind of puts your mind back in a different place? Or do you remember the whole journey you've been on? Or, what's your perspective looking back if you get a little bit
Uh,
introspective about it?
Part of me definitely feels like whoa, like it's wild, like wow it's been 10 years since we released that record. It's been a little under 11 years since we started the record. The record took us about 9 months or so to write. We wrote it in Silver Lake at Ed's old house at the time. It's been a long, wild ride, ups and downs, obviously. Yeah, I feel like our journey as a band and artists has been just so all over the place. We never really just picked one thing. I mean, even when we wrote Drink the Sea, we were kind of off doing something else. I mean, even back when I met you, which was probably like, I don't know, maybe even 4 or 5 years before that,
Exactly,
when I
yeah.
was like playing tear out breakbeats in a little club in Santa Monica
Yeah,
in
man.
like 2000 and I don't know
2005,
4.
yeah, I remember it well.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, um,
I think at that point you might have
y-
still been wearing the baseball cap, like.
yeah, full on sideways. Oh gosh, don't remind me.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
um, but we've gone and pinged off of so many different things and styles and influences and different journeys together and separately, that it's all kind of this big mushed together collage in my head. I feel very grateful for all the things that have come and gone and during that time.
There's actually a question from Mike in the UK. His name is UK Mike, so I'm assuming he's Mike from the UK. He says
Yeah,
it's an
sure.
obvious question, but like this with the isolation, how's that affecting your music production, and is it challenging? But I feel like that's a little bit of a question. Also going back to what you're saying now, like feeling that there's been in a way like a big wild ride and so many different things going on. Has this actually just being able to stop and stay in one place? Has that kind of affected
Mm.
not just your music production process, but it's like the irony of having this anniversary as well, where you can kind of look back and basically just like exhale and go like, holy crap.
Yeah,
Do you
I
know what I mean?
mean, yeah, I feel that for sure. Yeah, in a big way, it's been really nice to kind of just sit back and be like, okay, wow, like this is really like a nice moment to kind of reflect and kind of like soak it all in and
Mm.
be still for a moment. Sure, there's been many days along this kind of like pandemic era that's kind of just like staring at the wall, trying to like figure out, how to find some sort of like inspiration and creativity during this. We probably like would have been getting home right now at like from like a big 2 month tour, or maybe it would be continue. I don't even know at this point, but we had planned this big like 2 month Drink the Sea anniversary tour to celebrate the record, play the music in a kind of reinvented way. Just try to bring something new and fresh to a 10-year-old record. And, I got to say, it's like, it's been a bit heartbreaking not to be able to do that. Um, Building up so much to get to that point of like
Yeah.
celebrating this record with everyone and stuff like that. But yeah, in the same breath, it's nice just to be here and be home and kind of just be like, you know what, like it's all good. It is what it is. The cards lay as they may, and we're here.
Right. Yeah.
And we're gonna just make the best of it and then everything.
Yeah. Do you remember like we chatted like briefly when we were setting up the time for this about the fact that actually in isolation, like you're on your own in your own studio, but you've been used to basically being in a band for years and having like other people around
Totally.
you and like relying on that dynamic of the few people and the way that you work
Sure.
as a unit to finish records and so when you're sitting down to make music on your own, how different does that feel? And I guess that also leads to just a broader question about you mentioned earlier, like you would just all be at Ed's house working on the debut record. So does it
Hmm.
sounds like you guys would always pretty much work together while you're making stuff, right? Traditionally?
We have done most of all of the Glitch Mob writing to a certain point in the songs together. Most of the, well, the process is it kind of changes a little bit here and there as we've gone along, but more or less we kind of go through this sketch phase where the three of us will separately um, just sketch, for like weeks on end. It could be an 8-bar loop. It could be a full fleshed out idea. It could be just a sound here or there, a rhythm, and anything really. Everything is welcome. So we would just compile just tons of ideas, usually on our own, and we'd kind of bring that together and kind of sift through for a while, and anything that jumps out, we grab that and be like, oh, this is cool. Let's throw this in the pot. Oh, this sound, this like whatever set of chords that came together here. So it's really kind of fun to kind of listen through everyone's idea and be able to kind of like dissect each piece and be like, yeah, that one thing right there, that's
Right.
something.
Was
Like,
that
you
like a
got
kind of a
something there,
party vibe if you'd all been working away on your own, like bringing it together and just like hearing it fresh and
Yeah, totally. It was always a fun process,
yeah.
to get together with the guys and really just like, just be listening for those little like golden nuggets that would stick out, and that's kind of where a lot of the kind of like, almost right there is where the album would start, really.
Mm.
We end up with a bunch of ideas. We whittle things down, and all that would be done with the three of us together. We'd just start developing together from there. And um, actually, now that I think back about it, I think Drink the Sea might. Yeah, I think Drink the Sea was actually just like day one, sound one, all three of us till the very bitter
Oh,
end.
really? Like blank screen walking with nothing?
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
right.
Yep, yep. Because that was the first time we were really like sitting down to write together. We had done a few remixes, the three of us, before that.
Hmm.
We had done a remix for um, Crazy Bald Head, which was artist on Ed Banger Records. We had done a remix for Soundtrap Sector 9 and one for Nalepa. And those were kind of like the first. And yeah, those were kind of like the first like times the three of us got together to be like, okay, let's make music
Hmm.
as these three guys in a band.
Right, right, right.
Before it would be like like Edit would make a tune, I would make something, Beretta would make something, and that's what we played out as like three solo producers kind of getting together just to like DJ their
So you're
tunes
thinking of it like it was
back to
originally more of
back.
like a collective kind of thing or like a sound
Exactly.
system more than a
Yeah,
band.
exactly.
Right, right,
Exactly.
right.
So when we finally sat down to kind of like write music together, it was like, yeah, okay, blank screen. Yeah. And
Right.
that's how Drink the Sea was done.
Okay.
And then from there, we definitely kind of got into the kind of like, okay, like we kind of know what we're going for. Let's all kind of like go off and explore ideas, bring it back together, sift through, and then kind of like go from there. And yeah, and for the most part, everything was really like put together, the three of us. There'd be like phases in time where like Ed would be a bit more like controlling like the sculpting and mixing phase, and we wouldn't necessarily need to be there while he was like EQing a kick drum for like 7 hours. So
Right.
it's there were like little chunks of time where like Justin and myself would be off doing something else creative. Maybe it was like working on album art or song
Mhm.
titles, or just like putting together the other sides of making records and things like that. So
Right.
yeah, we've I think as a band we've kind of explored all the possibilities of making records together.
Hmm.
Um, and even to the point where some of the stuff on like our later side of things in the last couple of years could have been like 90% one of the guys,
Hmm.
and then we would just kind of like get together and like finish the 10% off together and kind of like let that be, let the music kind of come as it may.
But it's gonna. So it's like you had like enough commonalities to kick off with. And do you feel like
Exactly.
there's
Yeah.
something now when you're getting back to this thing where it's just like the final finishing bits happening together? You kind of built up enough of a language together over the years anyway, or is it also like you're more comfortable each like having more different things come into the pot?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. We definitely got really comfortable knowing kind of the strengths and weaknesses of each other and letting that, you know, be as it is, and not try to like, flex any muscle that didn't need to be flexed when someone else could have done it better.
Right.
And also, and very much like learned um, the sounds and languages of each other,
Hmm.
where like we could tap into kind of like, okay, let me put my edit hat on, like what would Ed do here? And kind of
Right.
like tap into that a bit more and be able to really, yeah, just kind of like go and do like what needed to happen for the betterment of the band,
Okay.
putting egos aside and things like that. Um,
So you're all like able to learn from each other, and even if like someone else's core skill might be more advanced in one region, you're kind of like being sensitized to a different way to work anyway.
sure.
In a
Yeah.
way, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you're like in this phase where you're sitting on your own with this like crazy looking wall of wires behind you, are you like
Yeah.
calling on those different voices, or are you kind of in a phase just personally right now where it's just much more of a blank slate and you're just making music for who knows, or what's your headspace right
Yeah.
now?
I think we're kind of all just kind of doing yeah, we're a bit more making music just for no particular reason, whether
Hmm.
it's just exploring the pile of wires and seeing what comes out of it. For me personally, it's been like I'm kind of like taking this opportunity to just try to learn a lot of new things on my own, where I'm
Hmm.
not sitting in a room with two other guys trying to learn things. Kind of, it can
Right.
be a little bit daunting.
Yeah.
Um, but I get to like sit here and play with all this like new modular gear and kind of figure out what it's doing and just kind of record sounds and just with no particular purpose other
Hmm.
than like, well, I'm going to just take this time to do this because I can.
Because it can, yeah.
and
Is that
um
like
and we don't
liberating or is that terrifying?
both, honestly. Like it's liberating because when I do find those moments where I'm like, oh wow, like I definitely stumbled upon something right here. Like this
Hmm.
is definitely like I'm gonna just not I'm not gonna stop. Like I'm gonna
Right.
like ride this wave. It's very like freeing and like making sounds or creating sorry, exploring the creative like side of the studio with no real purpose is has been feeling really good. Also scary at the same time because
Hmm.
I know how great the other two guys are at
Right.
doing this stuff. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of over here thinking like, ooh, what are they doing? Is
Yeah.
this like am I living it up?
Do you
Like
have
am I
like a way to kind of hush down that voice in your head? Like, I mean, we already said like it's not like you've got an agenda at the moment. So
sure?
do you have to like soothe yourself and say like, dude, I'm just hanging out and exploring. Like, stop putting so much pressure on
Yeah,
yourself.
sure. Honestly, sometimes like a little bit of like weed or like a glass of wine is very helpful for me
Yeah.
personally, and sometimes if I just like um yeah, if I kind of like get into like one of those spaces and like have a like smoke a joint or something, I feel like it can very like loosen me up, let my thinking mind kind of calm down and just let the ears just like run free and remind myself that none of this is wrong or
Mhm.
good or bad or anything. It's just pure fun, and that's I find like really liberating and really just kind of like a great way for me. I can definitely like overthink every single step in the studio,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
when I do get out of that mindset and get out of the way of the music and just kind of let it do its thing, yeah, like I find that peace in just creating and not
Awesome.
having again like an end goal,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I think so much of making music's especially like electronic music where so much of it is based around the technicality of how all the sounds will work together. I feel like so much is lost when I'm not having fun or like really just playing, you
Hmm.
know? I grew up playing a drum kit, a little bit of guitar, things like that. And I can just remember just like playing,
Right.
just playing. There
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
obviously like I wanted to get better and learn new tricks and skills and things like that, but it was
Mhm.
never like I need to like play this the right way so that it technically fits into the box, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Or if you're playing going like, oh my God, when people hear this beat, then that's gonna like blow up. Or is it, yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
It's something,
exactly.
yeah,
So,
a lot of the regulars on the stream, like we talk about this whole thing a lot and we talk about like friction points and where like when you're
mm,
working, when you notice that the flow starts to slow down or if there's like specific points in the process where you keep falling over. And I think this concept of
mm,
just actually being able to treat the studio as an instrument that you are just playing for the sheer sake of playing is
100%.
yeah, it's really easy to forget.
Hmm.
How is like your weed brain handling modular? Like, does the thinking
Uh,
mind go, and are you still able to like hold a complex patch in your mind, or have you kind of pre-patched some things and then you tweak them, or?
a lot of FaceTiming with edit. I'm like, dude, where do I stick this cable?
Really? Wow.
um, no, but I I guess for me the kind of the weed mind thing for me, maybe I didn't get it enough details. Like
Hmm.
I will usually only kind of like jump into kind of like weed minded sessions when I have something going. It could be
Right.
like, and it's I can tell because it's like a feeling or like some sort of motion feeling, kind of like excitement that I get where I'm like, oh, okay, like there is something here. Kind of, when I was watching your stream
Hmm.
just today, you would kind of say something like, oh, okay, like there's something here. There's like you weren't really sure what it is. You
Yeah.
can't put your finger on it. You're not like, oh, specifically this sound or this combination. It's just more of like, oh, there is something here.
Right.
So when I find that there is like a something is here,
Hmm.
that's kind of when I allow myself to like, you know, hit the bong or
Right.
something. Like
That's really cool, though. I love that. Like, so you're not like just wandering in a fog. It's
yeah,
much more
because
like getting yourself. It's almost like you're kind of I don't know. I want to make a really dodgy metaphor about like you're a skydiver and the plane needs to get the right altitude before you
yeah,
let rip. But
sure.
sure.
Yeah, like I want to like set the stage just a little bit, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not too in depth because I
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to explore and
Mm-hmm.
let the kind of like weed minded mentality do the exploring. But
Mm-hmm.
I also don't want to be staring at a blank modular patch with a bunch of wires, kind of being
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. What am I?
I can't remember at all like what to do here.
For sure, for
You
sure.
know, 'cause it's still very new for me.
Yeah. Actually, there's a question from someone flying who's our friend Puya up in Toronto. He's saying, has the tools for music, producing music, evolved over the last 10 years for you in the band? And I think we got a big, obvious demonstration there. I think actually last time I saw
For
you in
sure.
person, you were just about to put all that stuff in. Um,
Yeah.
but have you found like having new tools that you don't quite know how to use, is that like a fun thing where it just lets you explore again?
Yeah, again, a little bit of both because yes, when it clicks, it is very exciting and it lets me explore and try things that I wouldn't necessarily be doing if I opened up, Omnisphere or something like that. But at the same time, and a little bit a part of the glitch mob ethos over the years, and this has also evolved in ways, is that, a lot of times less is more, and we don't need the nicest, newest, fanciest, craziest gear to get good
Mm-hmm.
results. Drink the Sea was written in Cubase with honestly just like a few synth plugins. I think we were using like ReFX Vanguard
Mm-hmm.
um, and Reactor, Native Instruments Reactor, and it was all mixed with UAD plugins
Right.
and maybe like a handful of other like random things, like
Yeah. I mean,
a
it
little
was
bit of stuff. So it
amazing
was,
going through that multi-track, just seeing like how raw stuff is. Do you know what
yeah,
I mean? And like how
yeah,
that ethos, like you got such a massive sound out of like really, really focused elements.
totally. Tons of like storm drum percussion, stuff like that. And we
Hmm.
just kind of like left things as is, um, distorted where it needed to be, you know, verb things out where it needed to be, but didn't really overthink everything. I mean, you
Hmm.
can listen through a lot of this stuff and pick out things and be like, oh, that's definitely not in tune. Like
Right.
we didn't like tune that track.
Yeah.
That we kind of
And I was
just
noticing you weren't like super quantizing things either. Like, so it's got.
yeah.
But was that a little bit informed? I mean, I remember I saw you guys play live here in LA when you were all playing Lemurs.
Sure.
And when did that, was there like a kind of crossover between you guys DJing together and like turning into like a performance unit? And was
Yeah,
that
for
part of the
sure.
ethos that affected how you actually designed not just the record, but like who you are as a band as a whole?
Yeah, Drink the Sea was that defining moment of like, okay, we don't want to be three guys on a lemur, kind of like just doing quantized, kind of like heavy, like mind fuckery, like glitched out beats and stuff like that.
Right.
We want to approach this of like, if we were going to play this like tom rhythm on
Hmm.
something, whether it would be electronic or not,
Hmm.
let's just play it and just like get that in, and that's just what it is, as opposed to like hard programming and things like that.
Hmm.
And we really approached the Drink the Sea process, everything from writing it to performing it, as we are a live band now. And we didn't want to necessarily be club DJs.
Hmm.
I shouldn't say we didn't want to be. We wanted to explore the side of like, what if we were a band? What if
Hmm.
we didn't use Ableton and audio trigger fingers and lemurs to play, our music? What if we like, found other ways to do it? I mean, we definitely continued to use all those same all that equipment and stuff, but we
Hmm.
just like really approached it more of like a band. We went and like bought Roland V drum snares.
Hmm.
We busted out bass and guitar. We were using like synths on stage. We used the lemurs. We used Ableton as the backbone, but
Hmm.
we really went down that rabbit hole really deep, and to be like, all right, we're going to perform as a band because we just felt like that's what the music just needed.
Hmm.
That's what it felt like, the most honest way to get this new record across to people
Right,
in a
right.
live setting.
Awesome. Was there like a
Hmm.
moment when that like clicked in terms of executing it? Because it sound was it like driven as like an instinct that you knew that's how you wanted to present it? And then was there like quite a lot of figuring out the actual practicalities of making it happen to a point where it could become like second nature expression and like you could fucking rock without like having to
It
check your emails kind of thing?
exactly. That was a big part of it. And it took a lot of exploring. Once the record was like done, shipped off to mastering,
Mm,
instantly changed gears into like, okay, how do we play this live?
right.
Let's let's figure out how to play this live in keeping the essence of like this kind of like rocking electronic music, but we really just didn't want to be in a DJ booth. And it took a lot of exploring,
Mm.
and so much trial and error. I mean, like so many tours we would go on, it would just be like crashing
Oh,
nightmare.
really?
And I
Oh,
think
God.
I don't know, like what phase was Ableton Live at 10 years ago? Like
Uh-huh.
version,
Oh God,
I don't know,
five or
like
six or something. Yeah, I mean
maybe,
when
yeah,
I had live
like
in Björk's band, I realized like I could not install a single plug-in on it if I wanted it to work live, and I was able
exactly.
to do that because we had a big band. But yeah, it's like those all of these things, these interlocking pieces, which aren't such a big deal in the studio. It's a whole different vibe in there. So
Alrighty.
so I just wanted to ask as well, like the was the kind of like I want to say like the primacy or like the kind of rawness that was in the record. Did that just emerge naturally when you were writing it, or did you guys have a kind of a manifesto when you started?
No, it all kind of just came out in the wash, honestly. We just we just wanted to explore something different. We didn't really know what that was.
Mm-hmm.
From going from making a bit more like knock and beat, heavy sub bass, kind of like club banger, kind of breakbeat era, into kind of like the whole like kind of like tipper, bass nectar, hip hop, electronic thing, in kind of finding our footing in there, into Drink the Sea. We just kind of were like, all right, we want to just see what happens here if we kind of throw all those things out the window that we
Right.
were kind of used to and kind of maybe even known for in a sense, you know.
Wow.
And not because we didn't like it or anything, or we felt, you know, not like disconnected to it. We just were like, all right, let's just see what
See
happens.
what
Like,
happens.
let's just
Yeah.
go for it and like not, you know, not try to, you know, there was never any kind of like genre talk in the studio when we were doing it. Oh, it should be like, you know, quote unquote dubstep rhythm
Yeah.
or you know, like any it didn't we didn't lean on any of those type of things
Cool.
intentionally, just to kind of like see what would happen.
Yeah.
We weren't listening to a ton of music during that time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we intentionally kind of like, this is pre-streaming music.
Right.
You know, we intentionally closed iTunes, you know, and like didn't we just didn't explore a lot of music. We, you know, we kind of like found inspiration and more of like um, how to define the music through other things. Like there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Joshua Tree, you know, California desert inspiration that was just because we liked it and we would
Mm-hmm.
go out there and hang out. You know,
Right.
we
Right.
always talked about like, what would Jim Morrison be doing if he was down there right now? You know, and these kind of like, or just like, you know, these kind of like heroic stories we talk to each other about, you know,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like what it feels like to climb the highest peak
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, stick that flag in there for, you know, just like the love, you
Yeah.
know, of doing
Yeah.
it and things like that. And we would just find kind of like stories, inspiration, ideas through emotion. And like, did we feel something from it? What does it sound like when the, you know, the like cyber robots were coming and like invading, you know, planet Earth, but we're over here in our like wild Mad Max gear trying to like fend off the, you know, just like kind of like anything that didn't necessarily have music related
Right. But you're like
ideas.
firing up your imaginations and like inspiration.
Yeah,
And I think, like you're saying, just getting
yeah,
into emotional states. That's really rad. This actually
yeah.
ties in a little bit. We got a question from Bill Callahan in the chat. Billy Callahan, sorry, who's saying, do you write music with a special mindset that you'd put yourself into before composing? I think that's exactly what you're talking about. Or do you just go with the flow? And it's, I mean, you're kind of saying you get yourself in a mindset and then go with the flow, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
we would use these kind of stories and ideas and mindsets as like a loose base, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, we always just kind of let the music do what it needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that like, I don't know. It's all we've always said that. We always said we would get out of the way of the music, you
Mm-hmm.
know. We would kind of let it just come through.
Sure, sure.
Um,
And actually,
but
like,
there was other times that we would specifically put certain hats on, you know,
right.
like when we wrote Love, Death, Immortality, our second record, we like all three strapped on to like, what does Glitch Mob sound like if we wrote, you know, quote unquote EDM anthems, you know, and
Right.
this was a time right when the whole idea of EDM became a genre, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So we would call every version of electronic music just electronic dance music,
Mm-hmm.
EDM. Like everything was EDM in a
Mm-hmm.
sense. There was not like, it wasn't a genre, but we were just like, how do we make EDM anthems that would
Mm-hmm.
you would like play on a stadium stage? Like, what does Glitch Mob sound like?
Yeah.
And we intentionally went in with that story, and
Right.
that's what came of it, you know.
Very cool.
So
Very cool.
yeah, hmm
And Puya, someone flying in Toronto is asking, like, as a band, how do you or do you decide where to go structurally in a song? Is that do you have? We talk quite a bit on the stream about points when you're making stuff when it's just like any idea goes, but then at some point you need to switch your headspace and arrange. But do you have any kind of tricks when
sure.
it turns in going between that creation and locking it down kind of minds?
Uh, yeah, it's interesting. I guess like the overall structures of like the drink the sea method was like all again thrown out the window. It was like A section, B section, back
Mm-hmm.
to A section to C section. Let's throw a D section and maybe even E over here. And like we just didn't really care.
Right.
We just were kind of like arranging the way that we felt like we wanted to arrange.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can see this hard difference when we wrote Love, Death, and Mortality, which was
Mm.
very structured around like, okay, let's just simplify. Let's have like our intro, we'll have our like main section, we'll go into maybe like a bridge breakdown back into like, maybe a D section that was just like a heightened B section or something like
Right.
that. So it was structured a lot stronger and like intentional.
Yeah.
Where Drink the Sea was, we just kind of let things go.
Mm.
We just winged it. We just were like, well, yeah, like let's just double that like D section, and then
Hmm.
we'll add like a whole final like part to it. Like, why not?
Right.
Like, does
And
that feel right to us? Is like our gut telling us that this is okay?
and were you just very
Yeah,
naturally doing that as you're going in the studio? It wasn't like you were consciously thinking it's idea time now. How do we arrange it? Kind of time. Just yeah,
yeah.
very kind of loose and intuitive kind of thing.
Sure, yeah. We would often find like with Drink the Sea, we would often find the initial idea, which ended up being something like a 4 to 8 bar loop.
Hmm.
We'd be like, okay, there's something here. There's like a nice rhythm. There's some like cool synths playing. This is like a good little chunk. Like, okay, what do we do around this? And then we would often explore, where does this need to go to? Like, does it need to go like up another level, or does this need to like really kind of like go into like some sort of breakdown, maybe more of kind of like I don't know, like
Yeah.
a bridge section or something.
I gotta say, it's interesting, like just pulling apart, kind of, dissecting the multi-track on Fistful of Silence, just seeing how even like your stems were just literally numbered and things were just like, there's a thing that happens here and a thing that happens here, and you're pulling over certain elements, but it was like, it felt like each section was like its fresh, self-contained thing. And the way that
That's
the way that you
funny.
guys had like labeled it as well was
Yeah,
like, I've never actually seen a multi-track like that, where it's just like, this is the bit where this happens and then this is the bit where this happens. It wasn't
yeah.
like the layer comes in here and then it wasn't like switching one element. It really feels like you're stepping through very distinct worlds.
It was interesting watching you kind of like go through the sounds and stuff a little while
Mm.
ago, and like kind of laughing in the back of my mind, being like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah, those sessions." We literally mixed Drink the Sea in Cubase in sections. So the
Wow.
intro was like all the stems of the intro, boom, and then when it went into the B section of like whether it was like verse, hook, whatever,
Mm.
all those stems and parts were all completely new. Even if it was some of the sounds carried over,
Yeah.
it was like a whole nother chunk went down. It was like all, and we mixed all that on its own. And then
So
the
yeah.
bridge was all mixed on its own. Then the
Yeah.
breakdown, and then back to like even like the second hook, if it
Hmm.
was similar to the first, we had even mixed that in a whole other section. So it
Yeah.
was like, you'd have these like steps, like tiered, like a cake or something. And looking back, I'm like, oh my God, that was psychotic. Like, why couldn't the kick drum just be the kick drum throughout the song? But no, we had to go and like
Yeah.
listening to you and watching you sift through like, okay, the kick on this has like a little bit of distorted room, but then the kick on this is like tail's been like really kind of like tucked in,
Hmm.
but then this one has like a little bit of both, and then this one is it's like I mean, we didn't really know what we were doing either. It was
Yeah.
all just like fuck it. Like we didn't know. We thought like we were coming up with some brilliant new way of doing it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
hey, it worked,
It worked. Yeah, there you go. But I mean, I love it. It's like that really is just so fundamental to what you're saying. It really does feel like there's no rules or no specific concepts, and you're really just
Exactly.
like, the proper
Yep.
hashtag YOLO kind of thing going
Yeah,
on.
exactly. It was
Um,
fully that.
yeah, yeah. THC Rain, who's our friend up in Denver, is saying, asking modular synths aside, is there any notable hardware you guys have used or loved over the years?
Um, to be dead honest, no. All all three Glitch Mob albums were all completely in the box. We didn't use any hardware on any of it. How
Amazing.
weird is that?
That's great. Yeah. Is it scary
um,
having cables now? I mean, scary is the wrong
uh,
word. Is it a bit like, is it kind of like your first high school dance?
yes, yeah, a bit, a bit. the thing is we've all like used it all on our own a lot. Like
Right.
Ed's studio when we first met and got together was like packed full of hardware.
Oh, okay.
You know, EQs and compressors and like all kind of stuff, like
Hmm.
tons of cool stuff.
Hmm.
And I was living with him for a while before we ever started writing Drink the Sea or became uh, bandmates or anything like that. And so I'd play around with this stuff, and
Hmm.
so it was a part of our process always. But for whatever reason, when the three of us would get together and write music, we just kind of were like, we wanted to almost, prove to ourselves and maybe a little bit of the world that like that whole kind of analog versus digital battle that's forever constant in every, studio nerd's mind was all kind of like, you know, bullshit in a way. Was
Right.
like, look at what we can do without any of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
Almost, just as a fun challenge for ourselves.
Hmm.
But now look at us. We all have like stacks of things, and we want to make crazy sounds on modular and synths, and I have a stack of synths that you can't see and different things I've just been picking up. I just went deep in the Electron world, and now I'm
Hmm.
like, got an Octatrack and an Analog 4, and
Yeah.
it's like, so I'm trying every new piece of gear that I can get my hands on, just purely to push myself and have a new creative firing in my mind,
Totally, totally,
So,
yeah.
um,
Speaking of new things firing in your mind, Gypsy Kitten, who I've seen mentioned on your grounds a couple of times, saying if
oh
if you
yeah,
if you put out a solo album, will you sing more, use your own vocals? Your voice is so unique.
oh, thanks, Gypsy Kitten. um, I would love to. I'm like incredibly shy to do that. I don't really consider myself having like a nice voice or anything, but I have over the years used bits and pieces that were like so highly manipulated you would never really know.
Hmm.
There's a good bit of Ed's voice on Drink the Sea that you would never really know as well. So we've collectively and as a solo artist have done that. Whether I'm going to sing out like a whole verse chorus thing,
Hmm.
probably
Who
not.
knows? All right.
But I would like to get to that point. Yeah, like why
Yeah,
not, right?
yeah, totally, totally. Speaking of like trying different things, do you mind if we delve into like the world of 29 Palms and just,
Sure.
for those who are familiar with Glitch Mob but not 29 Palms, that's Josh and Bretta have a separate project, it's whole different tempo. Really, like, I love it because it's so like kind of deep and rolling, quite a kind of like psychedelic or immersive world.
Sure.
Um, and I think, the brief couple of times we talked about it in person, you've just said it was just like an avenue to explore a different way to make
Mm-hmm.
music or a different kind of music.
Mm-hmm.
How has that, like, do you kind of have the different worlds like really compartmentalized in your brain? Do you sit down? I mean, we talked about like you sit down and just start making something and see what happens. But if you're doing a 29
Sure.
Palms thing, do you have like a different perspective when you start versus if it's deliberately a glitch mob moment?
Yeah, there's um, definitely a big separation in my mind there. I think that diving into the 29 Palms thing with Justin, it was kind of like so exciting to get to try to explore any idea and possibility and sound or texture or rhythm that just wasn't ever didn't ever make the cut in Glitch Mob.
Mm-hmm.
And Glitch Mob, we try all types of things as far as styles and rhythms, and it's a very open project, but when you're funneling things through three people, only there's only a small bit that gets through the filter.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with 29 Palms it was like a good moment to really try to explore all those things that didn't make the cut. And it's obviously based mostly around a 4/4 rhythm, exploring more of the kind of like tribal house techno side of things, which I think the word tribal ends up a lot in Glitch Mob, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't end up exploring the house techno genre too deeply, other than, yes, there'll be like a 4/4 rhythm in glitch mob, but it's way more like punk rock and metal than it
Hmm.
is like techno or house or anything like that. So yeah, it's really it's been so nice to just kind of like jump into that project with that in mind, kind of being like, okay, this doesn't need to like one like hit hard. It doesn't need to be badass or aggressive in any type of way. If it turns out that way, that's okay. It's not unwelcome. It's just more of like I don't know. Yeah, we really just wanted to explore that other side of like, yeah, very psychedelic, very like soft, very deep, and Justin's a very like um, he's a very deep guy. He's like super into meditation. That so I feel like he really gets to like let that side of him shine in
Mm.
the 29 Palms project, and we can kind of like combine his aesthetic in that world with a bit more of this kind of like softer tribalistic rhythm and stuff like that. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
was really curious with it about it as well, because it's like often when someone from a band has like a different project, it's with someone who's not in their band. Do you know? So it's
yeah,
kind of like
right.
wild that like there's the triangle is turned into a straight line, but it's like you're
Yeah,
making a different kind of music with someone who's in the band still, and even like what you're talking about, like now you guys have a process of like kind of doing individual ideas on your own, then combining them and seeing if they work with the glitch mob. Was there like any tricks or I mean, aside from like obviously you guys consciously choosing to have a different brand and a different moniker that different music would come out under, but did you have to like lay different ground rules or like sit on different sides of the room just to make the vibes different?
um, no, I mean, me and Justin have been making music together, just him and I, for many years, like
Right.
all through this whole glitch mob process. Um, we just found ourselves, like randomly when we weren't doing glitch mob stuff, we would just get together and hang, have a glass of wine, and just
Mm.
kind of like make music and see what happened. And a lot of it wasn't necessarily in this kind of like 29 Palms, um, I don't know, like whatever feeling or whatnot. It
Yeah.
was just, we were just making music. Some of it was like really kind of like maybe a bit more like Moonbaton esque or like
Right.
hard, kind of like what we always called strip hop, which was just like this
Right.
like sexy hip hop kind of thing.
Hmm.
And through the years of just like doing that and it was always just this fun thing, like
Right.
we would just
Right.
together and make stuff for fun, explore random things. And through that really is like what 29 Palms came out of. And once we finally in the last like year or so like stumbled upon this kind of like, oh, like what if we just go like run with this kind of like four on the floor love of house techno at any tempo kind of
Mm.
thing? Like what if that's the one kind of ground rule,
Okay.
and like we ran with that, and it's been really like super fun. And we approach it a very similar way. Justin and I both make stuff on our own
Mm.
separately and trade sessions. Everything we've released so far has been minus two of the songs has been like working separately at home, getting together in the studio, finishing it off together and things like that. There was
Mm.
two of the songs that we just sat down and like clean slate, you
Right.
know, laid out a kick drum pattern and just like
Mm.
started going with it.
You guys have like it wasn't like you suddenly decided like, oh, let's do something different, start from scratch, but you have like a lot of
Yeah,
you're like constantly experimenting with different kinds of music. And it's really interesting that you're saying almost just that one ground rule or that
sure.
one wall to push off against was enough to like really focus that energy.
Yeah, I think Justin and I both, um, through the years of working in Glitch Mob together, would often find ourselves just exploring really cool left field techno music, like, kind of like stuff you'd find just like deep in Eastern Europe and things like
Hmm.
that. And we would just share it with each other and kind of be like, man, this is just like so different and so cool. And the
Hmm.
sounds here are so minimal and they're so like, it's so not like trying to be this like intense thing
Hmm.
a lot of times. And we just loved that because so much of Glitch Mob is rich and packed full of emotion and energy and intensity and
Hmm.
like, you know, very like depth of like chords and lead lines and all these things that were like built to this like maximal
Hmm.
amount. And so for us it was like, wow, there's literally just like a kick drum and some like bloopy sound happening. And it's like, I'm so here for it. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think just sharing that music back and forth with each other for so long,
Hmm.
we just naturally started to kind of explore that
Great.
in the studio together. And, at the same time, how much we loved that type of music and how much we love just kind of like house and techno music, we still kind of let our natural producer gut and mind dictate the music. So,
Right.
a lot of it still comes out very maximal. There's a lot of
Hmm.
layers, there's a lot of parts to it, just like that. So we didn't necessarily go like, all right, let's just like do that whole like minimal techno thing,
Sure.
but like let's just take one page out of that and throw it into our mix
Great.
and kind of see what comes of it.
Love it. Do you mind if I'd like get a little bit esoteric with you for a minute?
Sure. Please, let's go
um,
there.
just like I'm really interested. Like you've obviously, you've got a long career that's been running for a while. You've gone through a ton of different phases. Like, do you, if you're ever in a position where you're feeling kind of like burnt out or exhausted or stuck, or you're going into the studio and you're wanting to make stuff and it's not flowing, or you're feeling frustrated, like how do you recognize that you're bumping up against something in yourself, and then what are your kind of strategies to reset?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I often get to that point, whether it's like in one specific session, like maybe in one day, or it's, in a large period of time
Hmm.
where I'm finding it hard to jump into the studio. On a more like daily thing, I kind of write and find creativity in these kind of like waves. I kind of always talked about it like surfing. I feel like often I'm kind of wading in the deep on the board, just kind of like kind of like hanging around, not really doing anything specifically, but kind of like keeping an eye out for the wave. And when it comes, and if I catch it, I just ride it as long as possible. To
Hmm.
me, that's like the only way I work. And that wave could last a few hours, it could last a few days. And then eventually, the wave crashes and I'm not riding it anymore. And that's when I know to just walk away.
Hmm.
And so, like, kind of on a daily, that's my bit of a process. I always try to show up to the studio and, you know, I mean, showing up at the studio nowadays is just walking in the other bedroom of my house. But, before when we had another studio or like the guys, we work at each other's houses, things like that, we'd always show up and
Hmm.
like whether something really came of it or not, at least we showed up and let the kind of like maybe genius come through when it needs to be or not, but we're there to like let it go and
Right.
be a part of it if we need to be that day. Big picture, there's definitely chunks of time where the last thing I want to do is go stare at a screen or like play with buttons or EQ a thing or twiddle around on like sounds and stuff like that. And I'll take pretty big chunks of time away from it.
Hmm.
For me, a lot of times just getting out to nature is kind of like one of the best things for me. I often will just go on a little camping trip, just, I don't know, go down to Joshua Tree often and hang out down there in the desert, and kind of just like let my wired mind, come unplugged, really just, I don't know, not try to overthink any of it, just kind of just let my mind be at ease a bit. I've definitely like explored tons of different like psychedelic substances and things like that when I need to really find some sort of inspiration, motivation, and things like that. I find it very like useful for me. I've done it a lot in very like controlled like ways, very smart about it, like rave smarter, not harder is like one of the things we've always talked about, and it's just I think they're very powerful tools when done in the right smart way. So that's something I've definitely like dove into a lot over the years
Yeah.
to
And
help fuel.
do you know, like, is there like a particular sign that you start to see in yourself when you know that it's time for like a bigger retreat like that?
Yeah, and I think this extends way outside of the studio.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of just in life, whether there's moments in life where I don't ever really like, I don't know, like, what am I doing really? Like, other
Mm-hmm.
than, yes, I'm in this like wonderful band with these great people, and it's a very like, um, amazing experience. I feel very grateful like every day waking up knowing that like, I get to work with Ed and Justin. I get to be a part of this thing. It's such a blessing. But there's times where I just can't see outside of what, like, like, I guess what am I trying to say? Like, I guess, like, there's big chunks of my life where I'm often trying to find who I am
Mm.
outside of that, and like what what else is there to me? Like,
Mm-hmm.
who am I? And like, if all this stuff was deleted, like, am I all right? Am I gonna be okay?
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna be okay with who I am and what else I have to offer?
So do you feel like you
Um,
have a pretty good perspective on like music and creativity and music career, like in a much broader context? I'm having flashbacks. Like, do you remember when I moved to British Columbia from the UK? And I
I
think you had
do.
said like you spent a lot of time in the forest, and it sounds like,
Uh-huh.
growing up, you've always spent time in places that aren't really anything to do with like what's trending on whatever fashion mag or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if that was just like a natural gut instinct or something, or I feel just lucky to end up like having some like way into that kind of stuff.
Mm.
But I always felt very called to it, like that particular area was like a time in my life where I knew a couple of people up in the islands off of Vancouver,
Mm.
and was blessed enough to kind of spend some time away from the cities and be just nature, just, I don't know, just like everything opposite of a music studio,
Mm.
and I guess just like finding that good balance within yourself in life was what worked best for me,
Yeah.
and I often, like, when I would be like maybe taking time away and doing some sort of like just more peaceful nature thing. Like, all I could think about was like, oh, man, I just like want to write music right now. I just want to like go do this.
Mm.
And that's, the grass is always greener. I'm
Yeah.
in here sitting here like, man, I wish I was like, like in the desert, like just kind of like soaking in the sun, or like,
Yeah.
I don't know, kicking a rock or something.
And have
Like,
have you guys managed to like, or I mean, obviously, like when you're going on tour, you're going on tour, but have you overall collectively managed to arrange like your lives and Glitch Mob like as a business, where it's not like a massive constraint to how you're living? In other words, you're not like saying the album has to be done on this date, so you're just gonna like be putting out stuff no matter what. Are you like able to still let your day to day and the kind of seasons of your life evolve quite naturally, and then know when it's time to be putting stuff out and kind of shifting into that other mode?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's definitely something we've always like stood firm on, is kind of like letting the music writing process and the album writing process like be as it is, and let it kind of take as long as it needs to, for better, for worse. There's definitely like times in our career where we disappeared so hard writing music for so long that, yeah, like maybe that wasn't like the strongest business move,
Mm-hmm.
but we followed our instincts and kind of just went with it. And we definitely try our best at balancing the artist and the business, and not really kind of like overweighing one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
We are like independent artists. We very much go at things from the artist's mind, and
Mm-hmm.
then we trust our team to help guide us in the right business decisions, and making sure that the business side of it, and the like, oh, like content, and is there enough stuff out? Is it this, like, we definitely let that stuff exist in the band, and we know kind of when to pick and choose, like, all right, let's follow this business decision,
Hmm.
or let's just stick to like what the three of us think is the best move here.
Right, right.
So it's really nice having the other two guys to feel like I can lean on, a lot when I don't really know. And I
Right.
think we all three obviously lean on each other in a lot of ways to feel like we're doing the best for the artists of the band
Hmm.
and the business of the
Right,
band,
right.
So,
Awesome.
um, yeah, it's not always easy, and I know it's just a lot of, you know, going with our instincts and hoping for the best.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Hey, another kind of like big. I wanna deliberately phrase this question as broad as possible.
Sure.
But can you recall any moments in your life, just either both as a human being and or as an artist, at any point in your life, which were like really significant breakthroughs, kind of shifts in mindset, leveling up, whatever they were? And can you remember or share for us like what led up to those moments, and was there like specific catalysts or specific changes in your mindset that led to breakthroughs?
Sure. I can recall like a really um very strong prolific moment in my life as um a, a young kid really wanting to pursue electronic music. And it was probably in 2003 or four, maybe four. When do you think we met?
I'm pretty sure it was 2005 because I know it was coming back from Australia, and that was after I did a Prodigy record in 2004. So it was like start of 2005. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah,
And I was probably like maybe a year into kind of this like DJ career that I
right.
was going with. So yeah, I went on a road trip with these couple of like wacky artists out of Austin, Texas. They were probably 10 years older than me. I was probably like 21 or 2 at the time, and jumped in the car with them and drove across the country to this little festival called Burning Man. And I had no idea what I was doing or like what it was. I just thought it would be fun, and I was like down for it, and went out there. Um, was experiencing the chaos and the magic and the beauty of it, and left that year kind of being like, okay, like next year I'm going to come back here and I'm going to like do my music thing. Like I'm gonna DJ here. Like I wanted to DJ there. That was kind of like I was previous to this just bedroom DJing, learning how to mix vinyl. I got really big into like scratching, beat juggling, the whole kind of like hip hop side of DJing. Went to Burning Man and learned about kind of this like breakbeat mid tempo bass music thing that I had never heard before. Went home back to New Orleans for roughly a year, and all I could think was like, learn the most I could learn about DJing, this bass music stuff, and go to Burning Man and like
Hmm.
do that there.
Amazing.
That was the goal, and went the following year. Um, Ended up in this camp area with a bunch of now longtime friends. Bass Nectar was playing, Tipper was playing, um, Robin and the Moon was scheduled to play. It was like a Friday night at like 3 or 4 in the morning,
Hmm.
and he was nowhere to be found. And I was just standing in the right place at the right time. And one of the, stage coordinators at that time was just like, "Hey, don't you DJ? Like someone was telling me that like you like like you're working on your whole thing." And I was just
Hmm.
like, "Yeah." They're like, can you go on right now? Like Robin the Moon's not here. We need someone to play.
No way.
And I was just like, all right. And I ran as fast as I could back to my camp,
Yeah.
grabbed this like milk crate full of vinyl that I'd been collecting for that solid year,
Whoa.
ran as fast as I could back there, got up and played the first DJ set I ever played outside of my bedroom
No way.
in this like in this dome at Burning Man while there's like
Whoa.
flames coming out of the middle of the thing and
Holy crap.
and like in that very moment it just went so well, and I think I just picked every right record and did every right move
Hmm.
somehow. And I knew in that moment I was like, all right, this is gonna work for me. Like I'm gonna do this. Like I have now experienced this moment. I know for a fact that like I can do this.
Hmm.
And that was like where it all started for me.
That's,
And
I mean, it's wild how precise that vision is, though. Like, you're going to come back and play a
yeah.
set the next year. And so, but do I get this right? Like, you went back to Burning Man and you didn't, it's not like you had a set booked.
No, no, I didn't. I just wanted to so bad
So
that
you
like
just
I
brought
was
all your
there.
records. Oh my God.
Yeah, and I was just like awaiting the moment that like, hey, maybe. And I thought like, oh, because like at the time there was probably like a two or three like sound camps out there, but there was
Hmm.
always like some random like little thing with like some turntables and the dust in a speaker and like a
Yeah,
clip-on light, you know. And it was like I was like, oh, like there'll probably be like something I could just like play on
yeah.
just for
Hmm.
fun, even if it was like in the afternoon. I didn't know I was going to be like DJing after Bass Nectar at like 3 in the morning on like a
Yeah.
Friday night, and
That's
like
so wild.
and it kind of was that was just like it was all that was just the start for me. That was it. I was
Yeah.
like I knew it. I was like okay, and from there I went back. I think I moved to LA like shortly after that,
Right.
and I was like, I'm just gonna like figure this out. And a few people like Burning Man had like heard me play,
Hmm.
hit me up, and was like, yeah, like come DJ my warehouse in
That's so
downtown
wild.
LA. And I was like, all right. And I played at like 7 p.m. in the warehouse party downtown. You know,
Yeah.
like opened the room. You know, and
So wild. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm not sure if you're on when I was telling people the story. I told them on a previous stream, just like I was at this random bar in LA and was there with Adam Freeland, who
yeah,
was still running Marine Parade at the time, and was just like, that fucking guy is doing something. And you're like the
yeah,
only DJ I've ever gone up to somewhere randomly and been like, yo, what's up?
yeah.
Uh, s
I remember it very
yeah,
specifically.
it's kind
Like,
of really, and it's just, yeah, it's so amazing just now hearing like the backstory to that
mm,
there's just like part of such a big kind of focus and an acknowledgement of a life's mission in a way.
yeah. And I never looked back, man.
Yeah.
I knew previous to that. Like I knew I wanted to be involved in music one way or another since I was probably 12 or 13. Like I
Hmm.
remember hearing music in a certain way.
Yeah.
I remember on this little clock radio, like an REM song came on, and I was like, "Oh, okay, like music. Okay, you put that together with instruments, like you
Hmm.
record it somehow, you put it all down in a thing, and then it comes out a little speaker." And I was like, "I got to figure that out."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like it was a life mission of mine since then.
Yeah. And
You
but
know?
it went from like a broad like I want to do something to do with music to like this really specific like I'm going to
Yeah,
like make this thing that works in this context, and like you kind of devoted a year
exactly.
of that's really wild. Really
Yeah, because
wild.
I played in like some like metal bands, and like I played in like a punk ska band when I was
Hmm.
like in high school. And I was going to raves in high school. I was like, I would find myself in the drum and bass jungle room, kind of being like,
Right.
oh, electronic music. Okay, like I get it now. There's like this heavy bass. There's these like drums, and I knew that it wasn't a band putting it together. And I
Hmm.
remember hearing electronic music, being like, okay, like I want to figure that out.
Hmm.
And then that led to kind of like, okay, I specifically want to like do this kind of like broken beat, kind of like heavy, trippy bass music thing, but also like my influence and love of hip hop. I wanted that to be like a big part of it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I found out about Tipper, that was actually like a huge aha moment because he was the first one I heard back in probably 2000 and yeah, two or three. I was like, oh, okay, he's making hip hop beats with bass and he's scratching over that. I was like, this is exactly what I was kind of doing, but I was doing it in that kind of like underground hip hop mentality of like rapper, you
Hmm.
fill in between the rapper with like some scratch fills, and then he would rap the next. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, like I want to do hip hop. Then I was like, all right, I want to do like electronic music hip hop. And it kind of kept progressing and just
Yeah.
kind of like whittling it down to kind of like and obviously all of that has like changed over time from when you
Hmm.
met me back. I was probably playing like, I think I was probably playing like, like that kind of new school breakbeat stuff and like Adam Freeland was into, and I think
Hmm.
yourself, you made some like break stuff, I think
Yeah, I was
under,
like,
what was it?
I had
Something
12 and Stone
Lions,
Lions, yeah,
Stone
yeah,
Lions.
yeah. But
Yes,
I was like, I was
yes,
doing a lot of silent member stuff and kind of like behind the
yes,
scenes crew kind of thing. But I do remember it's
totally.
like really interesting because I think you were able to like blaze a slightly lower tempo, but like you had like a way that you're able to like get syncopation and swing and bounce happening, like you're saying, that kind of was almost like the kind of hip hop thing like
Yeah,
that. But
yeah,
the way that like you're kind of combining sounds was like, yeah, I kind of kept calling it like
yeah.
taiko breakbeats. Like I had like almost kind of like
Oh, I
Japanese
like
drummer
that.
kind of thing to
Yeah.
it going on. So yeah, oh, well
So
that's
yeah.
that's really wild. And like anything like outside of music, have there been any kind of like shifts in the way you look at your life in more recent times?
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, I got it. It sounds like you're a pretty well balanced young man, Josh. You know, like
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've done a ton of the personal growth work over the years,
hmm.
everything from different types of therapies, to like just straight up sitting in a therapist office
Hmm.
talking it out, and to yeah, very like specific psychedelic therapies and stuff like that. To like traveling as much as I can outside of Glitch Mob just to kind of like expand my mind in ways, like I love just exploring the world when I can. I feel like very privileged to be able to do that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
so I take all that stuff very like, um, I don't know, I just like I'm very like grateful for the opportunities in my life to have be able to do this kind of stuff. And like, I'm it's all very intentional for me, like I don't try to let anything just slip by and be like, oh, that was just fun, like which is nothing wrong with just fun, but like
Yeah.
I want, like I'd very like, intentionally try to keep myself very like right minded and level headed and like, not right minded like on the right, just more like
Yeah.
keep my mind right, what I'm saying?
Yeah. Love it.
But yeah, like tons of that kind of stuff outside of music,
Yeah.
and honestly, music has been such a huge therapy for me.
Mm.
It's it's being a very kind of like shy and person growing up and not really like feeling in my confident in my own skin. Music has given me such a loud voice, and it's given me so many opportunities to meet brilliant people such as yourself and my bandmates and just things like that where I feel like all of it is for me the journey of my life. It's all kind of one big thing,
Right.
and yeah, I just really try to do my best to you know keep a positive mentality about most things, and I don't
Great,
know.
man. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like maybe do we have any other questions in the chat? I feel like that's an amazing place to wrap up. Um, I really, really, really appreciate you coming on, Josh, and just the fact like you
Of
guys were
course.
and your whole team were like so welcoming. I know this is like we're a pretty niche corner of the internet here, but I'm
Oh,
just
of course.
I'm very grateful that I get to really pry open brilliant people's minds and have an insight into their whole process, and I really appreciate you kind of coming on and sharing here.
Of course, man. I've always like loved and respect everything you do, and we didn't get to talk about the moment, but there was that moment that you brought Bjork to one of our shows. That
I
was like,
did. Yeah.
that was like life changing for all of us, and
Awesome.
she's been such a huge inspiration to me since I first heard her, probably back in '98 or something like
Yeah.
that. I just knew there was like, okay, this creature is like very special,
Yeah, man.
and yeah, she was a big part of my music life, and so to have that
Totally.
moment with you was like,
Oh,
dude,
it's so fun.
priceless.
That was such a good night. I love it. Hey, we hope you enjoyed that video. A couple of more links here for some talks we think you'll like. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and otherwise head over to completeproducer.net so that you can connect with other music making geniuses from all over the world. We'll see you there.